One, I wouldn't tell a kid to go to Europe when they're 15. Two, I would tell them to become an athlete, or thing is the way I went, playing all different sports, experiencing things. But we don't have it in Canada. We don't have the experience of people understanding what it takes to become an athlete. Nowadays, when I speak to parents and stuff, all they talk about is their kid making it, They put so much pressure on them making it. But from my experiences, I just enjoyed it. I loved it. It was just a tool for something for me to be successful in life.
What I learned through the process, what I gained in experience that served me so well, it basically became an education that I could only get by that pursuit.
If I was just as good as you playing, that wasn't good enough. I had to be twice as good. I think nowadays, if you say that, they take it hard. I took it as motivation. So Bayern wanted to sign me, and that's how I got my exposure for Man United. Funny enough, it was Chelsea first, and then Man United. So once one big club comes in, they all come coming. On the Sunday, we're playing Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. They're like, yes! And then Drake's like, oh, he's never seen a game. So I call the guys at Chelsea. I'm like, well, Drake's in town, so I get them like a box.
All right, I'm just gonna level set to start the podcast off, and I'm gonna share with you the thesis for Transferable Everything. So the thesis for Transferable Everything is the intentional development of virtue, character, and attributes through experience in everything we do. And I say that because I wanna hold that message at the core of our conversation. So I'm just gonna blitz into an introduction that I have for you. I have it more in point form than the actual one that I originally sent to you. So stop me if anything's inaccurate, doesn't make sense. So today we have Jaime Peters, born and raised in Pickering, Ontario, just the town over from the one I grew up in. I grew up in Ajax. Your heritage is Grenadian.
Grenadian,
thank you. You're a multi-sport athlete growing up, which I think that's a very interesting part, and we'll talk about that later. You played baseball, basketball, track, and soccer. You entered the Canadian youth program at 15.
Yes, the Canadian, yes.
Amazing. And moved to Germany at 15 as well?
Yes.
And joined FC Kaiserslautern. Yeah. Later in your career, you turned down opportunities to play at Chelsea and Manchester United, which we're going to talk about because I'm a Manchester United fan, and that would have been amazing to see you play there. You signed with Ipswich Town in the championship, and that was on the recommendation of Canadian coach Frank Yallop.
Yes.
Your first senior cap for Canada was at 17. You had 26 caps total for the men's national team, 2 FIFA U-20 World Cups, 2 CONCACAF Gold Cups, 5 FIFA World Cup qualifying matches. You're described by the FIFA Technical Study Group as a fast, agile winger. You won Ipswich Town's Most Improved Player Award. You played under Roy Keane. I have a lot to ask you about that. Loan spells at Gillingham, Bournemouth, and Yeovil Town. And towards the end of your career, you went on trials with Vancouver Whitecaps.
Not really, I just trained with them.
You just trained with them? Okay. That's what I thought. I was kind of interested about that.
I just don't talk about.
Yeah, I suspected so. And then what was interesting is, almost a decade after walking away from the sport professionally, here in Ontario, you joined the Masters League One. Now you're a coach, and most importantly, you're building incredible athletes, and above all else, helping to form amazing young people. So, Jaime, welcome to the Transferable Everything podcast.
Thank you.
All right. So before we get into your career and, all of the things, the accolades we just talked about, tell me a little bit about the kid from Pickering that grew up right here where we're having this podcast. Before Germany, Ipswich, before, getting your caps with Canada, who was that young man?
So I started here playing for North Scarborough. Scarborough was like the biggest club back in the day. Obviously, it's funny because everybody talks about the West and Brampton and stuff, but when I was growing up, it was North Scarborough, Ajax where you played. Oshawa had a decent team, so I was at North Scarborough when I was from 7 to about 10, and then I moved to Wexford. So I played for Wexford for a little bit, and then I moved to West Rouge, and then from West Rouge, I played for CS Missouri at the time. While then, from like 7 to 12, I was also playing baseball for Pickering Red Sox, AAA. We were the best team in Ontario. It's funny because I was on the best team in Ontario for football, and then for baseball for the same thing. I was a center fielder for baseball, yeah. So growing up, I played both of those, and then I did track for school, and I played for Scarborough Blues as well for a couple of years. We were the best team in Ontario as well. So,
bro, so you're just an athlete.
Yeah, I was just an athlete. But it was growing up, like, we used to always be playing outside, right? So I just play all sports, roller hockey, baseball, all the sports that I just spoke about. And then, I was just an athlete. I think that's where I just got it from. So
that's so fascinating because, as as a coach especially, there's so much in today's football culture. I don't know how prevalent it is in Europe and in some other countries, but here in Canada, young kids are so obsessed to the point where they don't even play, like not even a little bit of any other sport. It's just all in on soccer, football, and I'm sure there's some value to it in some degree, but there has to be something that's missing there. And I'm curious what your thoughts are.
So for me, if I had a pathway, everybody always asks about my pathway, so I'll just think.
Yeah.
One, I wouldn't tell a kid to go to Europe when they're 15. Two, I would tell them the pathway to become an athlete or thing is the way I went, playing all different sports, experiencing it. I guess just because I was successful doing it, I would agree on that one. I think if you do, like you said, nowadays they all just put all their effort, let's say in football, for example.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to do it in Europe, for example, because they have that culture and that environment. I don't agree with it in Canada, or I think it's difficult, I should say, because we don't have the same environment and structure. So I think you would get very lost because, again, before we came on this podcast, what we were talking about is I think an environment is very important to take yourself for the next level in life. Yeah, and I believe, just my personal opinion, in terms of I think they do have it in hockey. That's why they have more thing, but we don't have it in Canada. We don't have the experience of people understanding what it takes to become an athlete. Nowadays, when I speak to parents and stuff, all they talk about is their kid making it. They put so much pressure on them making it. I don't know if it was the same for you when you had your experiences, but for my experiences, I just enjoyed it. I loved it. My parents, it was just a tool for something for me to be successful in life. That's different to wanting to make it. And I think that's where we don't understand. And even over there, they might do that, but it's still a tool. They have people that are protecting them to help them to become, let's say, a footballer in Europe. So everybody thinks it's about making it. If you hear the stories nowadays, don't you hear? I love the stories. Oh, Max Dowman, he goes scores, and then the next day he's going to school.
Yes.
If this was in Canada, what happens? He's going scoring, and then he's probably going to the CN Tower and going watching the Blue Jay game. It's something little, but that's something big. You hear Lamel, oh, he's going to training, and then he has to do an exam. He had to go to school first.
Yeah.
You see what I'm trying to say? But here, it's like, that wouldn't happen. So you're not building, it's a tool to build yourself to be successful in life, but we think it's all about the sport. I'll use just football, for example. And I think that's why there's so much, I want to say failures, or why there's so much issues with the structure of how it's going. And that comes from experience. A lot of people I hear, we laugh about it, like what we're talking about. Oh, they send them to Europe. What are you sending them for? That's the question I ask. What are you sending them for?
Yes.
I know, I get you sending him for a thing, but have you told him why? Like, why are you sending him? What's your goal? And I think that's where you could see where Canada's football in general is. There's a little like gap between, I would say. So.
Yeah, totally. And I find that so interesting that you bring it up in the way that you did, because I see that same gap, and the way I think our careers went. Mine was unsuccessful. Yours very successful.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Sure.
I think that's the problem. It wasn't unsuccessful.
Sure.
See, that's what people think. It's unsuccessful because maybe you didn't have a professional career.
Yes.
But it's still successful because of what you accomplished from it.
Yeah, and so that's where I bring everything ultimately full circle. Is, on paper I set an objective. I didn't actually achieve it. However, what I learned through the process, what I gained in experience that served me so well, it basically became an education that I could only get by that pursuit. And so, I use this phrase all the time, and we've all heard it, which is, it's not about the outcome, it's about the journey. But I think people, they say that a little too quick. What does that even mean? Especially for a young person, what does that mean? Well, we both had separate outcomes, and that's what I'm describing, right? We both had the same dream as young kids. You reached yours, I didn't. However, the thing that mattered most for both of us was the journey. And so we both found success because of the journey that we were so privileged to go on and experience. And it's funny because we've never met before, and so when you came here before you even got on the podcast, we could connect immediately through shared experiences and lessons learned and so forth.
And that's what it's about.
Yeah,
it's about the journey, like you said, and people get caught up in the process and they get too anxious and stuff like that. Like you said, right away. We could connect right away. Football's football. It's a sport.
Yeah.
It's actually a crazy sport because you'll go play I'll just use Europe, for example. You have, 10 different cultures. Yeah, 7 people speaking technically 7 different languages, but you could all understand each other.
Yes.
That's the beautiful thing about it.
Yes.
And your journey took you somewhere, my journey took you somewhere, but football still took us back together.
That's right.
Scary though, right? That's what it's about. That's what life's about.
Yeah, and it's what makes it so beautiful. And when people really understand the game and they talk about how beautiful it is. Yes, of course, there's beauty in the art. A beautiful 40-yard pass and all of those things that we sort of awe at. But the essence is everything it gives us, and the connections, the experiences, all of those things. And so, I just think that I feel very grateful for having had the experience. Now, that's also a matter of perspective, and it's, I think one of the things that brings us together is that we share that same perspective. On paper, from my experience, which yours and we'll get into, was similar in the sense that we're in a foreign country, we don't speak the same language, and we have no money at all. We're living in what we would consider here poverty, and not a lot of money for food at all, and yet it's the experience that taught us maybe arguably the most. When you moved to Germany, were you by yourself?
So I was by myself. There was a Canadian that was there from Vancouver, and so that's why I slept on the couch, because I wanted to stay with him and I didn't want to stay and he had a 1-bedroom, and he was nice enough to be like, okay, we're both Canadians. He's been there for a year. He's from Vancouver, so I just stayed at his house for the year, basically. And nice. I actually loved it. I felt like, again, connecting with someone, it was probably better for me to be with someone that's having the same journey and the same struggle, I would say. The same journey, Canadian, supporting each other, so it was good.
It's funny, one of the first things that you brought up when we were first talking about this is that a lot of the younger generation that hears these stories that, you know, you've shared, I've shared, there's a key component that they often miss, which is the conditions beyond living in a foreign country where you can't speak the same language and you might be alone and so forth. It's that not only is your support system in another country, which is really important, and we'll talk about it more for a footballer trying to find success, but we didn't even have the means to call home once a day, no FaceTime.
Had to figure it out.
Exactly. And that's a kind of a key detail that is often forgotten, I think.
I agree with that. And that's what we're talking about, our memories and our experiences. Like, yeah, you're going to get into my professional life, but honestly, for me, it's those experiences, man. I know people ask me always, do you miss football? If you ask 90% of footballers, they don't miss football. They miss the dressing room. They miss their teammates like that. They don't actually miss playing. They love it, don't get me wrong, but you'll hear. They just miss going in every day, whether you're going through something that was like your happiness, you know? I'm going to go play football. Football was the easy part. It was what was bringing with football was the hard part. So, you know, you have a bad day at home, you're going into football, now I'm happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I'm playing something that I love, and then I'm getting paid well to do it. And then people love me if I do well. But that was your happy spot. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, it was a place to escape.
Right?
Yeah.
And everybody needs that in all journeys. We were just, again, like what you said, it was blessed that we did something that we loved, and that was our safe spot, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. When you first made the move, or you think about that person that you were at 15 years old, what do you think it was within you that gave you the confidence to do that? If that confidence is even the right word to use during that time.
Yeah, I think I say I've just had it when I was younger. People always ask, I just think, but I was privileged to have a great support system. I say that's why I made it, you know? I think growing up, like you said, it's funny because we talk about how we didn't have FaceTime and all those things. That helped me survive in a foreign country not speaking the language. My parents taught me that, you know what I mean? So my parents didn't have a lot of money growing up too, so that probably helped a little bit too. But it doesn't mean just because they didn't, that a person that has a lot of money can't have the same experiences. I think it's how they teach you, right? My parents always taught me that, yeah, life's not fair. That's what they always said. Life's not fair, you know, but you can make it fair. You know what I mean? If I was just as good as you playing, that wasn't good enough. I had to be twice as good. But it wasn't, like, I think nowadays if you say that, they take it hard. I took it as motivation. I'm still doing well. I could get better. So that's where the confidence came in. I was always driven to be twice as good as the next person. Yeah. Right? And I was happy with that. So I knew I was giving my all. Where I think nowadays, I can't speak for everybody, but I just feel it when I'm coaching. I'm like, you give information, you tell a kid that you don't think he was good enough, and they get sensitive and they get down on themselves. So we always have to be careful of how we speak to these kids. Where it's not good enough, I'd be like, okay, I could get better. Like everything we could change into positivity. Where I think nowadays it's a little bit difficult because we always have to be careful of how we speak about things. So I think that's where I built my confidence. Was my parents they would say my parents were hard on me. I think I was blessed. I was very blessed. I was very privileged to have people to care about, to help me reach the ceiling that I could get. So
that's, you know, the fact that you can tie that back to something as fundamental as parenting and see how fortunate you were, I think is really important because, you know, if we talk about, there's so many different ways that you can have privileges in starting out your life. But I truly believe that parenting, the type of parenting, the quality of parenting you have is the greatest privilege that you can have. I always say, you know, I don't think it matters, however much money maybe I might be able to achieve one day. The greatest wealth transfer I could ever give my children, I have a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old, is what I can teach them about themselves, how I can help build them into the person that they can become. That far exceeds any amount of, financial transfer of wealth or anything else you could possibly give your children. And so, it's nice to hear that you can see that downstream.
Well, I guess that's what that made me. You know what I mean? I think my parents always taught me lessons. I always tell the story, it's a funny story, that's in school, when you get in trouble, you know what I mean? And you go back to your parents and you're like, well, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. And your dad would be like, no, you did. And I'm like, no, I literally did nothing. I was just walking and the person punched me, for example. You come home, everybody would be like, you got in trouble. Like I got in trouble or whatever. The teacher would say, oh, you did something. And I'd be like, no, I did nothing. Like the kid just kicked me or the kid just punched me. And my parents always used to say, like, no, you must have done something. And I wouldn't get it at first. You know what I mean? But I did nothing. But in your head as a kid, you always think that every time you've done nothing, it's always something wrong. What my dad always, or my mom always used to say, even if you looked at him a weird way, you did something for that person to react. So I'm not saying you did something wrong. I'm just saying you have to always be aware of what you've done for that person to get a reaction, because someone doesn't just do something for no reason.
Right.
And that's always just stuck to me. And it's always just stuck to me in life. And that was a big life lesson that I've taken everywhere. And it might be something simple, but it helped me understand people for some. If someone's having a bad day, for example, everybody like, well, yeah, you have to try and figure out. You know what I mean? So that's always helped me to get to where I was too. There was never excuses. It was always my fault.
Yeah. So it's like, there's a guy, I don't know if you've heard of him. His name's Jocko Willink.
Yes.
Former Navy SEAL. He wrote a book, Extreme Ownership. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what that is. So like your parents instinctively taught you that fundamental lesson at clearly a very young age that you need to take responsibility for your contribution in anything that happens.
Yes.
And I think you're right. Like that's something that's missing, which is crazy because there's so much literature today about these ideas, the philosophies behind them and why they're, fundamentally important. And yet it seems like in some ways that we sort of, we're taking less ownership as a society in our actions. And you're right. In this scenario, you're not in the wrong, but you have to focus on the things that you can control.
There you go.
And you can only control, or you can only look at the things that maybe you might have contributed to that. So next time, maybe you can prevent it. But if you never look this way, if you never look in that mirror, then how are you ever going to find ways to improve, not just for yourself, but every room that you walk into? And then the world's happening to you rather than you get to happen to the world.
So what you basically said, that's my life in a nutshell.
Amazing. So, okay. So if we go from there, one of the things that obviously I was very interested in, because full disclosure, I'm a Manchester United fan through and through.
It's good to talk about it now, man. I would have said like 4 weeks ago, you don't tell anybody.
Yeah. It's a very, very good time to be able to do that. So, at what point in your career, I had mentioned this in the introduction, you had the opportunity to go from Germany to England, and you had the opportunity for Chelsea and Manchester United. How old were you when that happened?
17. So what happened was I went to Kaiserslautern and I had a good year and a half, for example. So I was 15 playing with the U19s and sometimes with the amateur, they call it over there, but it's the reserve team.
Right.
And what happened was we played Bayern Munich and played really well. We lost 4-3. I set up 2 goals, and I scored. It's Bayern Munich in Germany. So the next day, Bayern actually called me and asked me to come on trial. So what happened was I actually went to Bayern Munich first, and they wanted to sign me. This is where I talk about football is, this is why you need the right people, structure, and stuff. So Bayern wanted to sign me, and that's how I got my exposure for Man United. Funny enough, it was Chelsea first, and then Man United. So once one big club comes in, they all come coming. The scary part is you think they all want you. But what you don't understand, the political side of it is, I'm just using this for example. It didn't really happen to me, but like, let's say Real Madrid or Barcelona wanted to sign me. They just didn't want me to sign for Real Madrid. So that kind of did happen for me because Chelsea came in for me first. And Man United did like me, I'm not saying it, but it's more of, they were the rivals at the time, right? So they don't want you to sign for Chelsea.
Right.
So now that's the hard part. You have to figure out who really appreciates you more, where are you going to develop more, all the things that you talked at the very beginning of basically who's showing you the most love.
Yeah.
And so that's how those opportunities all came at once. But the opportunity actually came from Bayern, and they're the ones that wanted to sign me first. And then I actually went from Bayern to Chelsea. And then from Chelsea, I went to Man United. I did like all trials to see where I wanted to go. And then Frank Yallop was obviously the coach. He brought me into the men's team. We did a couple friendlies that don't count as international caps.
Yeah.
And then that's how, and then once, like I said, those 3 teams wants you, basically every team in the world's more or less.
Of course, yeah.
are interested in you, so.
Wow, that's super fascinating. and you had to navigate that experience on your own.
That's what it was.
Like you said earlier, there wasn't a lot of experience that you could call on to support you. You know, I don't recall anyways there being any real agents, especially ones with experience here in Canada supporting Canadians abroad. You just kind of had to make some calls and ask, hopefully somebody.
Yeah, so I had Barry McLean. You know Barry McLean?
No, I don't.
So he was an agent too,
Okay.
Francois. He was really good for me. He's actually how he got all the opportunities. But I was one of his, I want to say biggest clients. You know what I mean? Well, with those opportunities, he was amazing, by the way. He's part of the reason why I had a career where I had, and I'll always be grateful for what he has done for me. But it's me and him too, where I use that for example too. I had Julian de Guzman too and Paul Stalteri. They're doing well.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but let's take Neymar for example. Neymar gets to talk to Pele, Ronaldo, Romario, Rivaldo. You're France. You're coming through in France, and you're going to the biggest clubs like Real Madrid. You're calling Zidane. You're calling Makelele. That's the difference.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say? Who am I calling? Bob the Builder? You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm no disrespect, or I can't really. Who at the time, who had the opportunity? There was no Canadian that had the opportunity that I had. Bayern, Man United, and Chelsea. Man United and Chelsea were the best teams in the world at that time.
Yeah.
Literally. And then you have Bayern Munich. Those are the 3 biggest teams. What Canadian, apart from Owen Hartgraves, that's what's the beauty. I was when I got to meet him when I was at Bayern, but he was, who else? Who else do you have the experience to get the education from?
Yeah.
So now I have to make a decision with that agent. And luckily, to be fair, he gave me the right advice. But having that other support system could make you even have a better decision, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We were talking about that, the power of experience, and each generation that comes before, whether it's in, life outside of the game, being a parent, being a sibling, or directly in the game, each generation, the hope is that they improve, not just in their abilities, but also in their ability to make good decisions and navigate what's otherwise a really unknown terrain. And of course, that terrain continues to evolve. We often use the example. There's a quote, and it's that no man steps in the same river twice, for he is not the same, nor is the river. And so even though that's true in this scenario, at least having a set of experiences that when the next generation is showing up to that river, that alternate terrain, there's some level of experience. It might be different today than it was back then, but there's still a wealth of experience. And people are still people. Politics is still politics in the background. And the human condition does remain the same, despite some changes.
And I agree with that. It's like you give the experience, you tell people the experience so they can make a better decision than what you made.
That's right. That's right.
That's what I always tell the people, exactly what you're saying. I hope that's similar to what you're saying, right? It's like,
absolutely.
I'm telling you my life experiences. So if a decision like this comes into your life, you could be calm about it and you could make the best possible decision for you. It's like what we were talking about with you and your brother. Remember, we were saying your brother's going to have a career, and it sounds scary. I think he's a great player or whatever, and he'll sit here and he won't get it. No disrespect, he won't get it until he maybe goes to play for Man United. And it would be like, I made it, but you made it. I'm not saying he wouldn't, but I made it because of my brother's experiences. You know what I mean? Partially, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I'm just using that. That's part of the one support system. And then it will follow. I made it because my dad's support system and my mother's support system and maybe some couple friends. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And that's the experience that you want to give that a lot of athletes usually have.
Obviously, you know my brother, you've coached him, and he's doing very well, and he has really great opportunity in front of him. And, you know, I think my younger brother does as well. And so, you know, that's kind of the idea is like, I've paved the way in some respect. I've learned a lot of lessons. So have, you know, my dad, especially having done it twice, which not every parent gets the opportunity to. It's rare.
That's a privilege. That's a blessing, like you said. And it's funny you say that because like you went through it. We think Jacob would, but that's why when you have siblings, maybe the youngest one will have the best career because he gets, not always, you get the privilege of having those type of experiences of your older brothers. So he's kind of living the perfect life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think the youngest one, because I was the youngest kid too, that's why I was privileged, because every experience that they're taking helped me to build who I was.
Yes. Yeah. And what's interesting, one of the things I find so fascinating, and this is at least in part what I've been writing my book about and sort of trying to slowly uncover through the podcast is like, you know, there's certain people that some people take those opportunities and they can make the most of it. And they can learn from those experiences, from the people who came before them. You know, there's an aspect of wisdom of not having to make the same mistakes that you saw someone else make. Other people, they just have to go through and they have to learn the hard way. They've got to touch the stove, the stovetop themselves. And that's something that's always fascinating. But if I tie it back to the, you know, the decision paradigm that you had in front of you. You've got Chelsea, Man United, Bayern Munich, you've got these clubs. How did you land at Ipswich?
So, truth is, I signed for Chelsea. Literally.
Wow.
But passport issues.
Yes, okay.
And stuff like that. So what happened was, I had 3 in front of me. Yeah, it's so overwhelming, people don't understand. And like I said, luckily, and the good thing, I wanted to pick where I thought I had the most support. Well, I felt loved at the time, and those were like through the trials. Ipswich treated me really well. They all treated me really well. So it's between 4 teams. I had Derby, other teams, other thing. But the 4 teams was Ipswich, Bayern, Chelsea, and Man United. So I'm sitting there, and I have those 4. The reason why I should have probably stayed, you could always say shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Of course.
But I did so well in Germany that I probably should have stayed at either Kaiserslautern or went to Bayern. But in my head was, I don't really speak the language, you know, so it would probably be easier to go to England. And then I had family in England. So that's why I kind of swayed a little bit towards Chelsea, the English clubs. So that's how I started breaking down my decision. Then it was through the three clubs who treated me the best. Actually, it was Ipswich and Chelsea that I felt most loved. You know what I mean? I just felt very loved. But Chelsea, again, what made me feel more Chelsea than Man United Ipswich was I have family in London. They speak English.
Right.
And the city is amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is how I was making my decision making, if that makes sense. It sounds great, doesn't it? But there's always more to it.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? The political side that maybe I could have made a better decision and maybe stayed in maybe a year or two in Germany, then make that move. Another thing, the Premiership just at that moment was Hollywood now. You know, the money was getting pumped in and the exposure now, we say the best league in the world. I was part of the start of it. Because you remember Premiership only started, 92 or 2002, something like that? And that's when it started getting really good.
Yeah.
So that was another thing that took into perspective of how I had to make my decision. Signed for Chelsea, and then something that people don't understand, this is why you need experiences, is as you're signing for them, I don't have a European passport, so I would have been on a visa. You couldn't get into England. England's the hardest thing, by the way.
Yes.
It got denied 10 times before I actually got it. So it got denied at Chelsea 3-4 times. That's why I could be able to change to get to Ipswich. Again, a rule that people didn't understand was because there was, at that time, that influx of players trying to get to, because England was promoting the Premier League, they made a special visa.
Really?
Yes. So at that time, they made a special visa. It was called I don't want to say a sports visa, but something like that, right?
Yeah.
And what it was if they could present to you, and this has nothing to do with football, people don't realize, this is immigration policy, that if you could get this talent visa, that if this kid at the time was worth more than $2 million and he plays 70% with his national team and he plays 70% with the first team, the senior team of whatever club he goes to, he could renew his visa.
Oh.
So now
Yes.
I'm 17 years old. You go to Chelsea and Man United.
Right.
I was already playing 70% with the men's national team. That wasn't the problem. But if I go to Chelsea and Man United, am I going to play 70% to stay into the country? So now that's a decision that you have to change. If I go to Ipswich, would I get that better opportunity to do it, or a lower team than one of those top teams? So that's why I reversed my...
Right. So, yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people don't realize for athletes abroad. You know, it's not just football players abroad, but in your case, so your decision making couldn't be about what was best for you in terms of your football career. Obviously, that's part of it where it has its place. But in setting an order of priority, of course, immigration status, getting a visa had to be the focal point.
Yes.
And so, had that not been there, you would have stayed with your original intent, which was to sign with Chelsea.
Sign for Chelsea and Man United. It's like,
yeah,
you know, because even if you don't make it, at least you could stay in the country and try opportunities elsewhere. But that decision is a make or break for me. I signed for Chelsea. Let's say I sign, I don't play, I don't get a visa. My career is done I was 18. I signed a 3-year. I could be done with my football at 21.
Yeah.
Because how am I going to get another visa, for example? Or everybody thinks it's easy to go to another country, but if I couldn't play 70% of the games for Chelsea or one of those clubs, that means I'm not playing, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not playing, how are you going to get another team? It's like we were talking about before, that's development at the young age is the most important thing. You want to play, whether it's the second league, third league, or fourth league. Because again, in Canada, we don't understand. We were talking about it before, TFC, you want to be a TFC, but if you're not playing, no one sees you, so you're not I tell parents all the time, they laugh at me. I said, you might be signed for TFC or you might be signed for Bayern. That doesn't mean you are a Bayern player.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make sense. I said, no, if you're not playing, you're very irrelevant in this game.
Yeah.
That's something we need to teach. They really talk about development. And if you have stats that talk about it, how many players that sign for these big clubs make it through? Not a lot.
Yeah.
It's not a lot. They usually take the process is the lower players that are playing at a high level. Like if you're 16, 17 playing with men, you'll get probably a better opportunity.
So now you're there. Now you're at Ipswich. What is life like?
It's just different. Like, again, it's kind of overwhelming. Like you're in here, you're just playing. You're not realizing that football is a religion there. You know, so like at the time, Simeon Jackson, the player that played national team, David Edgar, they were there. Like David was at Newcastle. Simeon was playing at one of the lower teams, Rushton and Diamonds. So when I go over there, funny story again, I make my debut, and honestly, I come on and the whole 30,000 people are just cheering you, you know. And in England, it's amazing because they always have songs for you, you know, like, you know, so they're cheering me and I just feel like a legend, you know. So the first thing I do, I call my parents, tell them whatever. And then I call David, he's at Newcastle and he's watching the game or whatever. And then I'm like, so I'm walking in the streets. I'm just a normal person from Pickering, not realizing like, they think I'm a celebrity, right? So I'm walking in the streets thinking you could do this. And all of a sudden I call David. I'm like, David, what's going on? He's like, well done. I'm like, yo, I'm a legend here. And he's laughing. He's laughing his head off. I'm like, yo, I'm on top of the world. Like, I'm a king. And then all of a sudden these fans are like, there's only one Jaime Peters. He's like, he's a legend. Look at a legend. And he could hear it in the background. And we just started laughing. He's like, welcome to England, man. And I was like, this is just different, you know? So, and again, as much as people think, like, most people would get, like, into their head.
Yeah. In
me, it was like, okay, I'm privileged. I'm going to make the most of this. I don't know how long I'm going to play as a footballer, but it was a life lesson for me. I never got treated like this in Canada. I'm going to make the most of this because my opportunity could be gone tomorrow. So that's how I always took every game. It was like, I'm the most privileged guy, most spoiled kid in the world right now. So every game, I was always happy. I would work as hard as I can because not every day someone would be calling you a legend. Not every day you'll have the opportunity to live the life that I was living. And that's how I always took football. It wasn't about the money. It was more about what we talk about, the memories and the experiences. And I'm doing something that they always say 0.01% make it. So when everybody used to think, they'd be like, Jamie, why are you so happy? I'm just a kid from Pickering. If I play bad, I go home. I play well, I'm a legend. So I'll play well. That's how I want to continue to be that guy. If not, I'll just go back to the guy being from Pickering. How much people from Pickering made it at my level? No one. That's how I always used to think about it, even in Canada. I was like, who had the opportunity to go to Man United? Just, I don't care. You guys think I suck? Well, you didn't get my opportunity. I'm going to make the most of it. I knew I was privileged, and I never took it for granted.
Would you say, like, that's the amount of humility and gratitude that clearly existed within you at such a young age? Would you attribute that to your parents as well? Would you tie that back?
My parents, I'll tell you a funny story too.
Okay.
I always say funny story. So I make it for Ipswich, right? And we have Chelsea and Arsenal in the same week. Yep. So I call my boys. I'm like, this is your one and last opportunity, man. Who could come? There's two of them that could make it. And I called my parents to come. Well, at the time, my mom couldn't come, but my dad was retired. So he comes. Yeah. My dad comes into town on the Thursday. Or my dad actually came earlier. Sorry. My dad came to see me in Christmas.
Okay.
And then we played in January. So he extended his flight because I had these two games because it just came out. It was FA Cup and Carling Cup. We were in the semifinals. Said, you got to stay. You have no choice. I was like, you're never going to see Arsenal and you're never going to see Chelsea. And I had them in the same week. And then I call my boys. I'm like, you guys are never going to get this chance. You guys are coming over. So that happens. And then Drake, this is when he first comes on the scene.
Yeah.
He's touring in England. Yeah. So some of the guys that went, my dad was a guidance counselor at Pope. So some of the guys that Drake works with were from Pope. So they call me and they're like, they're in town. They've never seen a game before, right? So I'm like, okay, come watch my game. On the Sunday, we're playing Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. They're like, yes. You know what I mean? And then Drake's like, yo, he's never seen a game. So he's like, yeah, he's coming. So obviously at the time it's Drake, but he's still getting it. But they love him in England, but he's getting on the scene. So I call the guys at Chelsea. I'm like, well, Drake's in town, so I get them like a box, right? So get a box, and I tell them it's Drake. So obviously at the time, Drugba and all those guys, Ashley Cole, they're like, oh, Drake's in town. They want to go meet Drake. They, the two boys that came, they were actually really good friends with the ones that went to the school. So they're all. So we get there now. And the Sunday comes, and I said, Dad, I have tickets, but you could go into the box. So I got my agent. He's going to go in the box. He's going to look after Drake and these guys. What do you think my dad says? No. I'm going to go sit with the Ipswich fans. I don't care who it is. It's like, so everybody's laughing, you know what I mean? They're laughing. No, I'm just going to go sit with, he didn't go to see Drake. He went to go see his son.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So I guess that's where I get it from, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's sitting there. Eventually, obviously, he meets them or whatever, but he goes, sits with the Ipswich fans. And then, so my boys are laughing because they obviously did both. They're like, no, I'm going to go sit with his dad. And then they're going to thing with Drake in the box. So that's where I used to get it from.
Wow.
So the first game that Drake's seen was Chelsea versus Ipswich. Drugba's playing with it.
Watching a Canadian. Amazing.
No one knows that story, but it's a true story.
That's incredible. I can't imagine how you must have felt walking into Stamford Bridge. Your family there, the people you love, who's obviously now a Canadian icon, being Drake, and everyone knew how talented he was early on, and so and walking into Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
For a game, there must have been a lot of weight on your shoulders in a moment like that.
Always.
And how did you deal with that?
Again, like I said, I always just say it was my support system. I don't know how to. I watch interviews now, and it's the same thing that David Beckham says. You know, when he was going through all those things, I don't know how I did it. You know what I mean? Everybody thinks there's a thing. I just think I just had the right support system that helped me make the best decisions. Sure. I can't tell someone that these are my decisions, and when I tell you guys these stories, I hope if you're in this same position, you can make the best possible decision for you.
Yeah.
People don't get these stories. Like I said, these stories, what I'm telling people, kids don't get. But here in Canada. But I'm telling you, they get it in Brazil. They had it from 1970, from Pele to everybody that's going down. Zico, Rivellino, R9, Romario. So they get those stories. So they understand the pressure. We don't.
Yeah.
And that's the privilege. That's the luxury. And the word here, too, again, I tell parents, you're privileged. And they get so offensive. And I'm like, no, I don't think you realize how privileged you are, what you're going through. So don't take it for granted. But here, we use it as a negative thing. I always use it as positive. I'm privileged.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah.
Imagine just sitting there, right? And Drake, by the way, is an amazing person. Got me tickets, too. I went to go watch him because he was on the Saturday. And then on the Sunday, he came to watch me. You know, it's an experience. And then my boys, we got a week of probably the best week of our life, probably. Imagine going to watch Drake, the man. And then he comes watch your game. He goes watch football. And then I'm playing Chelsea, one of the biggest clubs. Then you play Arsenal on the Tuesday. Go beat Arsenal 1-0, by the way.
I was going to ask you
remember
about
that game, right?
Yep. So
that's the week. That was the week of probably that everybody knows about me. That was the best life. That was the best week of my life.
Wow.
Probably, arguably,
sure.
You know what I mean? I think probably the best is the day I signed my professional contract, but that's probably one of my memories that the world will know about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I have to give him so much credit to Drake, because like obviously he's been so involved with like, you know, sports, the Raptors and stuff like that. But from the very beginning, to hear a story like that he supported Canadians, artists, athletes, you know, he didn't grow up as an athlete, yet he's over there and he's still supporting Canadian athletes. That's just so cool. And so to tie it back to that game, let's bring it back to that game. So you're playing Arsenal, and what position are you playing at this point in your career?
I was playing everywhere. That's the truth. Majority I was playing in the midfield and then right back.
Okay. And this game you played right back?
Yes.
Right.
But what people don't actually realize, I was actually supposed to play in the middle.
Oh.
But we had a couple injuries. And then because I was the utility guy, they moved me to right back. So
interesting. And then that just by chance, some injuries, and you get moved to right back, and that's when you have, like you said, it's how everybody remembers you.
Yeah, that's how everybody remembers me.
Is that game. And I mean, at that time, everyone always refers to you had Andre Arshvin on lockdown. Yeah,
exactly,
lockdown,
right?
Lockdown. Which, I mean, that's such a feat in of itself.
Because at the time, remember, the joke was, maybe it was in a month before that, they played, remember the 4-4 against Arsenal, Liverpool?
Yeah, when he's four.
So there you go.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, you're going to go play some guy who's Jaime, you know what I mean? And he thinks he's going to have a thing. You're thinking he's going to have a field trip.
Yeah.
Go score 4 against Liverpool. Can't even get past me. No, but he was a legend. Like, you know, he was on top of his game when he was there, you know. So, again, that was a privilege that I had to get the opportunity to play against him in Fabregas and
of course
stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you keep using the word privilege. And I love that you're using that word, because that's how you saw that opportunity. It's a gift.
It is a gift. Everybody uses that word as a negative. I told you, I use it as a positive. I was privileged, man.
Yeah.
You didn't make it, right?
That's right.
I made it. That's a privilege.
Yeah.
I don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
I always told people when I made it, I always thought, and you can answer this question too. I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah, please.
How many
any
guys
question.
did you think who you're playing with you thought would have made it at that time?
There's a number of them.
Thank you. That's what I said. So that's why I always thought, I'm going to make it. You're going to make it. We're going to have fun. Like, I thought it was that easy. You know what I mean? Like, you're the team here. You're like, yo, we're all going to make it. There was like 8, 9 guys. You're thinking, we're all making it.
Yeah.
Only 2 or 3 of us did.
Yeah. That's
think about it, right?
Totally. What's crazy is as you're telling these stories, right? And it's one of the beautiful things when you actually get to speak to somebody is you're not just hearing stories written on paper. Like I can see in your eyes the emotion and that you're so fortunate to experience. But as you're describing them, I had these experiences, but in my dreams.
See?
I dreamed about the moments that you're describing. And so like, you know, it gives me goosebumps right now because, you know, my whole life leading up to not actually getting to the place that you did, but I dreamt about it. It felt so real in my dreams.
Close.
Yes. And so, you know, people have asked me before, like, you know, was it worth it? You kind of went all in. You didn't go to school, post-secondary, and you at the time, you know, it was crazy in 2007. That's when, you know, I made my move, you know, to not go to post-secondary after grade 12 was kind of like, what's wrong with this? Yeah, that was like, I had to have a lot of bravery to do that because, you know, there was like, socially, it was not seen. Even though I was going to do something that's kind of cool and novel to most people, to most of society at that time, it's like, no, you go to school.
You're never going to make it. You better go to school.
Exactly.
That's how we grew up, no?
Yeah, 100%.
You're never going to become a footballer. Go get a job.
That's right. And what was crazy is, you know, in that year and a half, let's say, 2 years, including the build-up, by the time I eventually, you know, hung up my boots and, you know, based on the circumstances and everything, the the education I got, and so, my mom, for example, she's very worried, of course, about the opportunity going over. When I came back and she saw the person that I was, she realized like the education I got, I could not have learned in any auditorium, any school classroom, and it ended up forming who I am today, of course, and I'm so grateful for even that. Despite, and so that's where like, we were saying earlier, we're like, yeah, okay, I didn't technically make it, and I would have given anything to have the experiences, the wonderful experiences that you had, but the thing looking back that I got, and I'm so grateful for, and I want for every player, is the journey and everything you learn through those experiences.
Well, you're doing well now, I assume, or I think you are with the conversation we have, but I believe it's through your experiences.
Absolutely.
And I think you have so much more. You're still young and you probably have so much more to give. But
yes,
I think those experiences, and I'm biased as an athlete, and what you went through would make you to get whatever you want, because what we gone through at that age, kids don't do that.
Yeah. I've shared this with a lot of parents who have, been concerned about, the going all in on a sport. Like, obviously, I think in younger years, like you did, I think you should play lots of other sports, learn a lot of different parts of athleticism and stuff like that. But as you get older and, now it becomes more narrowly focused, I encourage parents to allow their kids to go all in and just like put everything into the pursuit of that. And they might say like, okay, but they're likely not going to make it. And the thing that I think of immediately is like, okay, but going all in and having that experience of putting everything inside of you towards an objective, whether you make it or not, that the only way to get everything out of it is to do that. If you sort of like, if you take the approach that like, okay, I want to be cautious just in case I don't. So I'm like, I'm in it, but like, I'm not really, I still am working on all these other things, then you kind of rob them of the experience. And so like, there's, say at 17 years old or 16 years old, a parent might say, okay, it's clear my kid's they're not going to make it. They might not even get a scholarship out of it. So they're going to go play house league or something. I'm like, no. Still keep them at the highest level they could possibly be at, because that's where they're going to learn, or they can learn and develop everything inside of them, all these skills and attributes and virtues as a person that we're talking about. And otherwise you just rob them of it.
That's the truth.
Yeah. You were sharing with me that you're at Man United for a month. Mm-hmm. And the experiences that I'm definitely going to say you're so fortunate to have. And what it really made me think of was, and I'm going to get you to share some of them, but tying it back to the beginning when you talked about the thing that every player misses is the dressing room. And as we were talking, you're sharing your stories. That's so much of what you're sharing. And so I kind of want to, whatever you're happy to share about that experience and the players, not just the players you got to play with, but something that I found so fascinating was the players that were willing to take you in and put you under their wing and support you. And I think that like I have so much respect for those players. Like, I mean, you're a Manchester United player at the top of your game, and you have some Canadian kid. There's no Canadian players at that time coming into Manchester United or any world-class club, and you still open your arms to them. So, anyways, can you share some of those stories?
Yeah. So like, I'll start with Chelsea's stories, and then
Sure.
I'll start with Man United, and then I'll go to Chelsea's stories.
Okay, perfect.
So like, I think that's why I was blessed.
Yeah.
And I always tell people here where, like, it all ties in. You see how I said the experiences is what you literally said. And I'm actually going to bring Ipswich into it too, because I got the privilege to play with Ivan Campo. For people that don't know Ivan Campo, he played for Real Madrid. He played with Zidane. He's played with R9. He won 2 Champions Leagues with Real Madrid. Yep. And he played for Spain, so he's played at the highest level with the biggest club in the world. I always say the two biggest clubs, in my opinion, most valuable with pressure is Real Madrid and Man United. So I'm sitting beside him at Ipswich, and he's telling me stories. Yeah, and then you have Roy Keane too as my coach.
Yeah.
And he played at Man United. He's won basically everything too. And he's telling me a little bit of stories. I'm a little kid from Canada. I'll always use it. I'm just a kid from Pickering. And if they could take me in, why can't we do the same for these guys? Yeah. Why can't we do in Canada? I don't think we appreciate people enough. I don't want to say the word jealous, or I don't think we take them in because these guys have won everything. They don't need to talk to me. Football is not the sport in Canada, but they still took the time to understand the person that I was. And that's what I want to give back to these kids too. And that's what they miss. So like, again, I go to Man United, I'm just a kid from Pickering. I'm going in there. I'm 17 years old. I'm young. And then imagine just, again, I'm opening doors for Paul Scholes, and he's nice. Like, he's just a normal person. You know what I mean? I go there. Rio they find out, obviously, because it's so big, they find out a Canadian's on trial there. What always got me was the first team players didn't think they were bigger than the youth players at these big clubs. So I would use Man United. Rio, I will always remember Rio Ferdinand. I'll always remember Luis Saha. I'll always remember those guys because I remember them interacting with the youth players. So I could see why kids will make it too, because imagine Rio's coming up to you and joking with you. It might be something little, but then it would drive you to get to there. It changed my life knowing that Rio's like, oh, you're the Canadian? Yeah. You know what I mean? It changed my life that Louis like, Jamie, Bellion, because Bellion was there. Like, it's like, wow. They're at the top. Man United was literally the biggest team in the world at the moment when I went there. And they still took the time to say hi to me. They still took the time to talk to me. And I tell people my experiences, no one could experience that. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I remember that era, not just for Manchester United, for Chelsea as well. Like, I remember so much. And the kindness that they showed you is just, it's hard to imagine, because you're right. We don't see that level of kindness in every other part of, society in some ways, and in our broader experiences. For someone that's literally, all those Man United players at that time, Rio Ferdinand, Luis Saha, Paul Scholes, that's early 2000s, 2004, 2005. They are playing for the best team in the world. They're the biggest names in the world. And yet this kid from Pickering on trials, and they can show him kindness. You're right. There's no excuse for any of us to ever not show kindness to anybody. If they can, so can you. So like, I just want to I don't think those stories are shared enough about those people. We always look at them as the athletes, but that's like a human thing about Rio and Luis Saha and those guys, that like, what an example for what an amazing human can be. So like, that's incredible. And you had a similar experience at Chelsea.
Yeah, like Chelsea was probably even more, because I was training with the first team at Chelsea, and I look at Jose Mourinho, and I got the opportunity to get coached by him. I know trained by him while I was on trial, and it's like, I admire the guy. And it's just from my experience. You know what I mean? You see, he's the special one. Everybody thinks he's arrogant. He's just a normal person, just doing his job, and I think he does it really well. I got the opportunity, and he treated me so good. He gave me an opportunity to something that a kid from Pickering never had. I admired Brendan Rodgers because he was the reserve coach there at the time too. And even when I went to Ipswich and then he was at Reading, he still remembered who I was. He wasn't big time, and I always think, like, if these people could do that to me, why in society I think that's, again, coming full circle again, that's the experiences we don't take on as Canadians, but I'm just using this because we're footballers, they take it to heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These Man United youth players look up to these guys. So imagine Rio is going to talk to a youth player. That's the world to them.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Or like they have the FA Youth Cup and the first team players go watch it. You know, so imagine you're an 18-year-old kid and you see Rio Ferdinand, Paul Scholes, and coming to watch your game, but you're so used to watching their game.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we're missing in Canada sport. And even the guys that do it, I'm not saying you have to bow down to them, but I don't think you acknowledge them as much because I could walk the streets and no one knows me, and I actually happy that. But if I'm walking the streets and you want to be a professional footballer, for example, and you don't know who I am, I was the youngest person to play for Canada, by the way, when I made my debut.
Yeah.
So it's not like, so if you want to play for the national team until Alfonso Davies taken over and thing, I'm still the fourth youngest or the third youngest to still make my debut. So if you want to play for Canada and you don't know who I am, I think that's a big problem with society.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I paved the way for you. And that's what I'm trying to say. Rio paved the way for those guys. I use Ajax as the perfect example because it's easiest for me. You know, how good were they? You know, Seedorf and these guys and Davids and Bergkamp and Van der Sar paved the way for all those Ajax kids. And they appreciate that.
Yeah.
They understand it. We don't understand it here. How are you going to become a professional footballer and you don't know anybody that played for Canada?
Yeah.
Tell me how that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So if you don't know my story, I'm not saying you can't make it, but you have a far way of making it, by the way.
That's right.
Because you have to know the history. And that's one thing I learned about even being at Ipswich or in England. They know the history. 7-year-olds know, and they know the history. Their grandparents know the history of the club. They know. So I was going there and I'm like, you know more about me than I know about myself. They do their homework.
Yeah.
And that's why the culture of it is the way it is. If we want to be more successful, I think you have to do your homework. You have to understand the history of the game, where you want to go to. I think if you want to become a professional footballer in Canada and you want to play for Canada, you have to know the players. I know Lyndon Hooper, for example. Bet you all people would have no clue who that is. He paved the way for me.
Yeah.
And then people like, I had the opportunity because I was young and I made it young. Julian de Guzman, Tiba Hutchinson, you know, Jimmy Brennan. I played with all these guys, Paul Stalteri, and I admired them because they paved the way for me.
Yeah.
You could say maybe I had the better experience or even maybe some of the better, no, but I couldn't do it without these guys.
Yeah.
I couldn't get that opportunity without these guys, and I will always appreciate these guys for that. And in Canada, that's why we don't have more kids because everybody wants to make it. Everybody thinks they know what it. I always laugh too. We have the most ex-professionals here. Everybody knows what they're talking about here, by the way.
Yes.
But no one's done that.
Yeah.
It sounds scary, but there's only going there as a youth player and making it as a professional. Canadians, I don't think we have in Ontario, maybe more than 10. But then everybody thinks that they know how to make it through the academy to become a professional.
Yeah.
Paul Stalteri didn't even do it. Yeah, I'm not sure if Jimmy Brennan did it. They became professionals and they had great careers, but they didn't go through youth.
Yeah.
Junior Hoylett did it. David Egger did it. Julian Guzman did it. Not even Atiba did it. So you see the different pathways, but
Of course.
But when I have parents here telling me, "Oh, this is how I get to academy," no. If I tell you no, I'm not saying I know everything.
Yeah.
I'm saying trust me when I'm telling you. The way you're saying it, it's probably very rare that it's going to happen that way. But they think they know better than that. But you go to Ajax and you go ask Van der Sar or Edgar Davids or Zidane, you go somewhere, you ask one of those guys how to become a professional. Those guys listen, and that's why they make the better decisions of what we're talking about. Because they listen to, I'm not saying the experts, but you're listening to them. So when you get that opportunity, they know how to deal with the situation. We don't, because you think you know more than the person that has experienced it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a level of arrogance
Yeah.
that exists, and in the book that I'm writing, the second chapter in the framework, the core framework that I'm working through is humility, because it's such a fundamental virtue that you need to build, not just as a person, but if you want to be an athlete, most especially. So I did this exercise with my brothers as I was preparing to write this book. And so what I did was I took a collection of words and I sort of mixed them up all on a single piece of paper. And I said, okay, let's look at, in an order of priority, prioritize each of these words of what you think the best soccer player would have. So I would have like courage, humility, virtues, right? Problem-solving skills and things like that. And then I would have first touch, shooting for them because they're goalkeepers, shot stopping, stuff like that. And I said, put them in order of importance. And instinctively, and this was about 2 years ago, so they're a lot younger, they put
First
the
touch.
virtues. They put the virtues at the top.
Oh, okay.
Courage, humility.
Amazing.
And I was like, okay, this is the point. So what I tried to demonstrate to them was that we put all of our time and attention and resources, money, with all these things, into the bottom part, the technical mastery of the game. But although those, of course, are extremely important, but some of the biggest difference makers, especially at the highest level, is going to be the virtues, your ability to have courage, humility. What's your problem-solving skills like? And those things transcend beyond the game, which is so fascinating. And I made a secondary argument to it. It was like, well, let's say, for example, you're playing at the top team in Ontario, right? And your distribution of the ball is top notch. Well, like, okay, maybe that's 60%, 100% is Paul Scholes, let's say, right? Or Zizou. They're 100%, you're at 60%. Well, you might think you're at the top because in Ontario, you're the best distributor of the ball, but the world is a lot bigger. And so now your coach tells you, we need to keep working on that. I'm like, why? I'm at the highest level. You need to have a sufficient amount of humility to look at yourself and say, okay, I need to put in more work. And that's what the athletes, but the parents have to form those virtues within their children. And unfortunately, in many cases, like you're describing, is they're not doing them within themselves. They think they know better. I always say this. I say this in business, actually, because the same things are true in business, right? Like you want to learn from a business leader that's been there, has done it, because it's such a tumultuous path to build a business. And it's very similar in that way to trying to make it professionally. If you get the opportunity to learn from someone who's done it, who's been there, do whatever you possibly can to learn from that person so you don't make the same mistakes that they made. So you can gain some of that wisdom. It doesn't mean you blindly listen to every single thing, but they're going to hit a lot of things right, even if you don't see it immediately. And I think you're right. I think that's something that's missed here. And you brought up that there was about, I don't know, say 10 Canadian players that I was saying this before you got here, trying to contextualize with the team, like your playing career. And I was like, I don't know why, actually, and we can cut this out if it doesn't make sense to add, but like, I feel like you didn't get the flowers that you deserve as a Canadian player that paved the way others do. No disrespect to any of the other ones. But in your career specifically, I feel like us as the Canadian players that have come after you and continue to, we haven't given you enough flowers for what you accomplished and of course try and give back. And I don't know why that is.
You're not the only one that says that to me. They always say that to me. Everybody says that to me. I don't get too much flowers, or I'm too humble, or
Sure.
And I'm just like, partially could be my fault. I just experienced. I didn't want to be out there. I'm
Sure.
not a big social media person. I have it, but I'm not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just want to just give back.
Yeah.
I want it to be different. So maybe that is why I don't get my flowers, but I'm still proud of myself because there's people that recognize similarities to what you said. The amount of guys that tell me that, like, Jaime, they don't respect you here. I'm like, it is what it is. It doesn't bother me because it doesn't. It only bothers me when, not in a bad way, but when I'm trying to help a kid. Because I'm like, guys, I'm helping a kid. I know what it takes. Give this kid an opportunity. But it doesn't bother me if people don't think that because I'm like, guys, you didn't get to chill with Makelele.
Yeah.
You didn't get to go to Chelsea. You want to meet Mourinho. I met Mourinho. I talked to him.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you could say I'm a little bit arrogant, but it's not arrogance. It's just part of my experience. You know what I mean? Like, you guys, people come into town. Ronaldinho comes into town. I see him. It's like, okay, he's nice to me. You know what I mean? I earned that privilege because I worked hard to get where I want. You know, you guys talk about Roy Keane. Guess what? He coached me. You guys can't talk to him. I can say hi to him. He'll talk to me. I earned it, though.
Of course.
You know what I mean? I don't need to tell people those stories. I do tell people those stories, and whoever wants to believe me, I don't care. But at times when I want to help people, that's when it really is like, I want to give back to these kids. I want them to experience what I want to do. It gets to me. It's like, no, listen to me, because this kid like what we're talking about. This kid needs to experience what we experienced, but even more.
Yeah.
We need more kids. I always, something very little, but is very big. A Canadian goes away, and maybe you could agree with me. They didn't give me my kudos, right? They didn't give me my flowers. Didn't support me as much. Want to know why I say that? If a Brazilian goes away, what happens?
They're fully supported by
everybody, by
yes.
the way.
Everybody.
You see what I'm trying to say? Even Americans, by the way. Let's use Freddie Adu. Just the basic.
Yeah.
He's a good player, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
What did they do to him? How did they promote him? He's the next Pele.
Yeah. I remember it very clearly.
You get what I'm trying to say? Like, I credit that because they're just trying to support him to push it. Every kid that's a Brazilian is going to be the next what? Pele. Every Argentinian is going to be the next what? Maradona, and now Messi. If there's a good Canadian player, he's not that good. Why can't we support us? I'm not saying we're saying he's great, but why can't we help him to get to that journey? And I think that's something that we need to do better in Canada. We have to give the flowers to the people. Like I always tell you, I should get more flowers. I'll use Lyndon, for example, because I met him a few times and I kind of a little bit know him. You have to give him his flowers because there's no Jaime Peters without Lyndon Hooper, for example. There's no Jaime Peters without Atiba Hutchinson and Julian de Guzman or Paul Stelter. I'm just using the players that I speak to today. There's probably more, but these guys I speak to, there's no Jaime Peters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't want to talk about the current, but they don't understand there's no them without us.
Yeah.
And there are some kids there today that do appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I hope that they have a better career than all of us, just because they understand, you know, the process and the journey of it.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. If I can ask this, I want to tie back to your career after, but, you know, since we're on the topic, I'm kind of curious and, you know, of course, share only what you're willing to, but, you know, you're talking about the Canadian program and, you know, how integrated are guys like yourself that have paved the way into the program in of itself with the up and coming athletes, with maybe the kids that aren't, you know, getting selected every camp for Canada, but like, is there support for them? Is there integration with the vets? There's nothing?
Isn't as much.
Okay.
There isn't as much as it should be. Like I said, I retired. I didn't hear anything. I haven't heard anything from Canada till this day.
Really?
Yeah. I seen David Edgar 2 weeks ago, last week.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Really?
We have like group chats now that the older guys, I credit them. They've got all the ones that they know that they could get a hold of, and they put us all in a group chat, and we're trying to help do what we're talking about. You know, get integrated with Canada and help the future and the present as much as possible. Yeah, but again, that's why probably people don't know me. Canada hasn't done nothing for me. After I've left the game, it's a joke.
That's crazy.
And I'm not the only one. A lot of them could come on and probably tell you. I can't name names because I'm not going to do that.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I'm going to say? I'll allow them to do that, but I can say for myself, they haven't done enough. I look, and again, maybe from my experience, I'll use like Ajax, or it's easy to use those things.
Yeah.
When they were out the game, their first job is what? With the club that they were at.
Yeah.
Mostly 90% of footballers are like that.
Yeah.
How many ex-Canadians, once they left the game, worked for Canada Soccer? Think about it. Or Ontario Soccer. Like, that's all part of, to me, that's all Canada Soccer.
Yeah.
Works for I don't say you have to do it at the highest level. Think about this. This is how scary it is. Zidane retired. He didn't just get the first team, where he was with the youth team first.
Yeah.
See how they just kept him in the game?
Yeah.
That's all they're asking for. But that's how you're going to develop, yeah? Arbeloa right now, he was a youth coach. Raul's a youth coach. These are the greatest players ever. You see how Spain, I credit Spain and Real Madrid football to keep these guys part of the game. How have I not got a call? How has David Edgar not got a call? We spoke about it. That's why I'm only using his name. But why haven't we got calls?
I can't even fathom that.
So then you guys think that what? No disrespect. You think Bob the Builder, right?
Yeah.
Is going to get the next Alphonso Davies? Why are we missing talent? Well, they have Zidane and Raul looking at the next best talent, and we have, I'm just going to use it in just a random name. You have Calvin telling me that he's going to be the next best Canadian. Who do you think's going to find the next best Canadian, or who's going to find the next best French footballer or the next Spanish footballer? It's not rocket science, is it?
No. And to draw a parallel for this for you. So, you know, as a business leader, right, running an organization, we have skilled trades, right? I have multiple skilled trades within my team. One of the biggest priorities that we have as an organization in our thesis is top-down training. So even we've had people who've wanted to retire and just sort of like kick around. We'll get them because you have to continue to build each next generation. Not in the skills, yes, but how to be good professionals and so forth. And so even in our organization of skilled trades, and I see this as a parallel, you want to have that wealth of knowledge to transfer down, not just bringing in new executives. Like in the business world, that would be a crazy thing to do, right? And you know, I'm fortunate to know and to spend time with a lot of business leaders that have built much bigger businesses than mine and done so really well. They would take the exact same principle. So I can't imagine in a business sense running an organization. It's not a huge gap.
It's the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing.
Principle.
Exactly. So I can't even fathom why that wouldn't happen. And it's a disservice to the next generation, to the younger players that are coming through, to have a wealth of knowledge and experience and to not tap into it.
It's scary. Like, because football is the same thing as business, right?
Yep.
Think of football.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk. You're a Man United fan.
Yes.
Yeah? What era are you talking about the Man United?
What
era do you talk about the most?
Oh, I talk about the Sir Alex era.
So the class of 92, right?
Yeah, well, the thing that made Sir Alex so special, and this is why I think when he retired, Harvard Business School studied him, because he continuously rebuilt teams with exactly this principle. It's the transfer of the old to the
That's why I
younger
used-
and the
That's why I used
continuity.
the class of 92.
Yeah.
So arguably the best team. He had a lot of great teams. It's the
Yep.
class of 92 because we talk about Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Gary Neville, David Beckham, right?
Nicky Butt, Phil Neville,
Butt.
all those guys coming
So
through.
what does that do? He had the young kids coming through with the experience.
Yes.
You talk about Barcelona. Oh, we all love Messi and all them. What was it? You had Messi, PK, young thing, the experience. So the younger generation coming with the experience.
Yeah.
So all the best teams in football do it.
Yeah.
Why do we talk about the Ajax team, the Ajax 95 team? All the young kids coming through.
Exactly.
PSG last year. You see, hey, that's how football actually is. So
Yeah.
you guys, everybody talks about football, but are you actually paying attention to football? I love, why do you love them? Because of the mixture, what we're talking about. But Canada, you love them, but you're not implementing that then?
Right.
Brazil, yeah, in 1994, they won the World Cup. Romario won the World Cup. What did they talk about? A young R9 was on the bench and didn't play. He was the next upcoming thing. Yeah, 1998, 2002. It's all about R9. But who was coming through? Kaká, Ronaldinho. Yeah, it happens everywhere. In Canada, we don't do it. And then you're wondering why we're so far behind. Maybe it's because you're not putting the right people in the right places.
Of course.
And that's another thing. I can't even explain that, but it's the whole system as a whole. They think it's just the Canada's. No, it's the whole system as a whole. And it actually starts from the very basics.
Yeah.
And then it just builds up and then it just comes, we could pick out every single thing because the system was already broken before it started. And people think it's about, maybe they think it's about who is in power. It is, but it starts from who's picking these people to be in power, or how did you do it, or do we understand? I think it starts from the people in power. Do you understand how the system works? So it starts from there. And that's why you need it started from experience. Why did U.S., do you remember why when U.S. started doing well? The national team, what did they do? They cleaned house and they brought in someone with experience.
You're right.
Who was the person they brought in with experience?
Was that when they brought in, oh my goodness.
Klinsmann.
Klinsmann, thank you.
So why are they on this pathway? So until Canada Soccer does that, cleans house and they trust the process, the journey, because it was a big process, but he paved the way for where America is currently now.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were broken until he basically cut everything, and it's a hard process. It doesn't look like it's going forward.
I wanted to kind of get into the latter part of your career. You had mentioned, and this was something, of course, I was interested in, being coached by Roy Keane. What was that experience like?
For me, I loved it. He was really good to me. When I went there, I had a year left in my contract, and then I had a few good games because he came towards the end of the season, and he offered me a long-term contract. I was young at the time. I was, I think, 22, 21, let's say 23, around there. And he loves young kids. I think he just loves people that willing to learn and had character. And he gave me an opportunity. It was all based on merit, in my opinion. So if I was playing well, I was in the team. If I wasn't playing as well, I'd probably still be in the team or in and around, but I had to work hard to maybe get a starting lineup. But for majority of his tenure while he was there, I was a regular. So for me, I was ever so grateful or blessed to have the opportunity to play under a legend in the game. Yeah, is he a madman? In the real world, you guys think he is. I just think he's just very straight honest. He tells you, just tells you how he thinks he is. You either accept it or you don't.
Yeah.
I accepted it and I enjoyed it. And I think if he was to hear this, he'd probably hate me saying this, but I liked him. No, he's a good person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not everybody, you have crazy stories about him. Everybody has different thing, but for me, he was good for me. So.
Yeah, and I, based on everything, you know, that you've shared and who you are as a person, I have to imagine anyone, especially someone who seems to be as much of a straight shooter as Roy Keane is, at least publicly. But in interviews where you get to hear people like you speak, that seems to be the constant. That's who he was. He's just going to be honest with you, and the difference is whether you can take it or not.
That's all it was. If you take it or not, I just took it as, yeah, he's speaking to me. He likes me. I even told him one time. I remember we were just speaking, and when he had my contract, and he offered me a contract, and I was happy, and I said, I don't care what you say to me. As long as I'm playing, I'll be happy. If I'm not playing, I probably won't be happy. He just did a little smirk, and what I mean? That's because I know he's a straight shooter, So, yeah, I didn't care what he said to me. As long as I was playing, I did it. Like, I actually did it. But that was with every coach. I don't care what you said. I didn't come to cross the pond to sit on a bench. You could pay me $100,000. People would be like, you're crazy. I wouldn't. The mental part of it, people don't understand. And then on top of it, if you think you're better than the person that's playing for you, no money could tell you that. Because as an athlete, the first thing, I don't care what anybody says. As an athlete, the first thing is your competitive nature.
Yeah.
So if you're competitive in everything, if he's making more money than me, I want to make more money than him. If he's playing, I want to play in front of him. If you take steps, I want to take more steps than you. That's how crazy athletes are, but that's why they get to where they are. They're so it's the competitive nature of it. Yeah. Is how successful they get. Oh, he's player of the year, I'm better than him. Whether you believe it or not, that's what gets you there. So that's what I always was like. I just wanted to play. And then if I thought I was playing, I would get my rewards. So playing under Roy Keane, he's just a straight shooter like that. And then you could see why he was so successful as an athlete, or his standards. He never dropped it. Even when he was at Ipswich, he believed that he treated us like we're at Man United, and maybe that's part of where he might have struggled as a coach. Some people say, but I don't think he struggled, in my opinion. But people would probably say that is because he only had that standard. Imagine being Roy Keane, being at Man United, and then you're coaching guys that can't pass the ball 5 yards. Damn, you know what I mean? It's like he's getting wound up. It had nothing to do with thing. It's just that he's like, okay, you could do it though. Because I always remember one thing that he was talking to some of us, and he's sitting here, and I always remember this story. I tell the kids this story all the time. After training, him and Tony, our assistant coach, Laco, they're doing half volleys. You do half volleys, and this guy's pinging it, and behind, below the waist, did it 7-8 times. You know how hard that is, without making a mistake. And then Laco made a mistake, and then we're like, "Yo, this kid's he's technically good." You're thinking that, man, he's just like, my job at Man United was to work hard. He didn't think that he was technically good, if that made sense to you. Maybe he did in his head, but he told us his job at Man United was to work hard. They had Scholesy and Giggsy that were the technical players, and I thought, well, if you're not technically good, I have no chance of playing. You know what I mean? I have no chance of playing at that level, but that was just his standards. You know what I mean? So these little things I took in, I have to start with the hard work, and you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So
yeah, you kind of see that in the punditry that he does now, where he's still holding that standard of expectation, and that's what he's speaking to. A lot of people are he sounds so he's so harsh and unnecessary.
Yeah, but
here's the standard, and this is based on his observation. This is where he sees they're at, and he's just calling out the gap between the two.
And that's where I think that's his struggle.
Yeah,
because he'll never drop his standard, but I think it's a good trait to have. It's like how you take it. Some people will thrive off of it. Some people, you have to change the way they are. They need a hand around them. You know what I mean? He's that guy. You have character. You think he's just a nice, funny guy. He's a straight shooter. If you need someone to put your hand around you, you probably would struggle under a person like him, because he's built off hard work. You know what I mean? That's you see the interview of when Sir Alex Ferguson talks about the Juve game, and everybody says that's his best game, and they said how the joke is about him. That's my job. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you say, he's he was running around, he was covering thing, and he's like, well, I think that's an insult that you said I'm just doing my job. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So to him, it's like, no, that was my job. And that's the joke everybody says. It's my job. You know, but that's just how he is as a person.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? That was my job to do that at that time. You know, so that's just how he is. And
what I find fascinating is like, okay, so obviously you connected with him and you appreciated his level of candor, and the standards that he set. And that was motivating to you, obviously very competitive, which is a great thing. And, you know, this is the hard part about coaching, is that level of coaching doesn't necessarily work with everyone. And to your point, that may be where he struggled a little bit. And, you know, generations have been changing, and, you know, not that we have to completely unpack all of that. But there's been managers that have struggled with that adaptation to the new generations and how they receive feedback and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm curious for you, now that you're coaching, how do you deal with that? Because there's obviously a little bit of that Roy Keane inside of you because you being coached by him, and so that's a real pass through of Sir Alex Ferguson, who is that way, and so forth. And now you find yourself as a manager and developing kids in this new generation. How do you navigate that?
I think I have the same struggle. You could ask your brother. You can ask your brother sometimes, man. It's like, I'm okay. Like, I think I'll use your brother, for example.
Sure.
Jacob has a lot of character. So I could yell at him and he takes it positively. And there's some kids I yell at and I could see them like get into their shell. Like, and it's like, I started getting it. Like, that's how coaches were with me. And so I can adapt to it a little bit, but it takes time for me. I have to, during the game, no chance. I'd be like, yo, these kids are delusional. Like, they don't know how to pass the ball 5 yards. And then after the game, or maybe 2 days later, I'd be like, listen, again, I humble myself and I'm like, well, they just don't understand the standard, you know? And that's the gap too, because good kids, I'll use your brother, for example. I loved coaching your brother because he always took maybe my yelling, or maybe he may not agree with everything. I can't say he is, but he took it as, this guy made it, so there's a reason why he's telling me. And that's how I always used to take it too.
Yeah.
I could see it in your brother. So that's why I could see when people ask why I told you he's going to make it, because he's taking in the information that he believes that could help him to get to the next level. I think kids in Canada, they don't, I think we protect them to the point that it's like, you see how we say the softer generation, that no, you shouldn't be treating this kid like this. And I do agree with that part, but the reality is that's not how the rest of the world looks at it. I don't care what anybody says. Don't lie to us. Yeah, on TV it looks like that. That's not how football, that's not how sport is, because sport's competitive. So you could sit here and say he treated you bad. By the way, this is my advice to you. In public, they will say you treated him bad, but behind the scenes, you're not going anywhere. You're blacklisted. Because I'll tell you why I say you're blacklisted. How could I trust you to where you had it in both worlds, in sport and in as being in the Navy or in the Army? You need to trust your people beside you. Yeah,
It's everything.
it's everything. So if I can't trust you to have my back in a football game because you're complaining about me, then we can't make it. Football is a team. That's where it is a team game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you might say, oh, I suck it up. Obviously, I'm saying it a little bit harshly, but that's what you have to find the balance is we win together, we lose together, we ride together, we die together. That's, I can't speak for most sports, but most athletes is like that. And football is especially like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are and I do say from my experience and even your experience, don't have to play at the highest level. Who are your closest friends? The ones that you grew up with and went through the struggle with.
Yeah.
Everybody, when you become a professional, actually, there's one or two that might be it. But I always you could use basketball. It's the closest guys, you hear them, it's the ones that they went to university with or high school with. In football, it's who you probably grew up with through the academy. If you didn't go through the academy, it's like if you went to pro at 18, it's that journey between there, if it's university or you're just playing for Ajax, I think those guys those are going to be your boys.
Yeah.
Because they understand your struggle or they understand your success.
It's the same thing. You're right in the military, and to the extent that when you go through training in the military, they manufacture suffering. Like all of what training is creating suffering for you as a team, for you guys to fail over and over and over and over again, and to suffer with like sleep deprivation, like an ungodly amount of weight that you've never carried before over an insane distance. And that's what actually brings you together. When you suffer with someone, you literally spend nights, if you get like 1 or 2 hours of sleep, but it's in a trench, filling up with freezing cold water in the middle of a forest somewhere, you and that person, you're inseparable. And the same thing was true in athletics. When, my friend and I, when I was in France, we shared a bed for 6 months with cockroach-infested floors and everything. We suffered together.
And that's your boy, huh?
That's my boy.
There you go.
Ride or die. And so it's true. And interestingly enough, I get into business, and the business world is different in many ways for a lot of people. And I've said to my team so many times, like, we're a team, and not every business will function that way. And they might do it as like let's call ourselves a team. But like, you guys need to understand, from my playing career as an athlete and then the military, I don't know how to do anything without a team.
There you go.
There's no Daniel, right? Daniel can do everything.
We win together.
That's right.
If I make it, I want to be successful, and I want you guys to be successful with me. I don't want to be successful by myself.
That's right. Nothing. You can't accomplish anything without a team around you, a support system, Yeah. And that's those lessons were formed first on the pitch, then later in military training, and I've been able to bring them with me as my experience into business and say, this is how we're going to win. This is how we're going to survive when times are tough. We're going to come together, and that has served us. Like we've been through really hard challenges as an organization and as a team, and we've come through the other side. Now, the difference is this guy, Simon Sinek, he wrote a really great book called The Infinite Game. And one of the differences in some ways is that in business, there is no, like, it's not 90 minutes plus extra time. And then it's like, okay, who won, 2-1, whatever. It's like the name of the game is just to stay in business.
It's cutthroat.
Yeah, it's just survive. That's how you win that game, because it's infinite. There is no end to it. But what's interesting is, although football is finite, the relationships you build in that finite sport are infinite. Mm-hmm. They last forever. They can. If you, of course, you have to foster them. You have some responsibility with each other to continue to stay in contact and stay connected and all of that kind of stuff. But that's, like you said at the very beginning, that's one of the most beautiful parts
of
the game,
your journey.
Yeah.
See, using this goes back a circle. We're talking about the process in your journey. Tell everybody, enjoy the journey. Yeah. Let it take you to wherever it takes you, man. But enjoy it. Work hard. Yeah, we'll always have to work hard. It's not that, but once you enjoy your journey, you'll get what you want.
100%. And I think this is something I would, as we prepare to wrap things up, this is something I would leave, and I'm curious what you can add to it for parents is, of course you want your kid to succeed and to make it and have a beautiful career like you did. Every parent would be sitting here saying, I would really love my child to have a career like Jaime, not Daniel. But I would ask every parent to take away from this is, what do you really want? Is it that you really want the experience? Like that can be number two. But what you really want is what any parent actually wants. The parent of any child, not just a football player. So you want them to be healthy, of course, but you want them to become the best person they can be. And that can happen through the beautiful game. And so all of your decision making should be about that. What helps them become the best person they possibly could be? Because
that's what it is.
Whether your career ends when mine did or it ends when yours did, it's going to end.
And then you have to come to terms to it.
Yeah.
And that's where depression comes in and all the mental health is, do you know when it's your time to end your career? But it's not, it's ending a journey and starting another journey.
Yes.
That's all it is. But when people think, I know it's sport, that's what you, or because you started from so long, when they end that journey, it's hard to find another journey. But like I said, it's not about the football. It's about, did you build yourself up? So if you built yourself up to be this person, then you'll be okay with, once this chapter is done, what you look forward to your next chapter.
If you can do it here, you can do it there.
There you go.
You find success here, you will find success in whatever
it is.
Thing is.
But you have to understand, we'll use football because football was what made my journey, but it wasn't my life.
Right.
That's the difference. There's more to life than that was just part of that part of my journey. That was part of that part of my life. And now I accepted it early anyways. I knew footballers, I guess you could say I'm smart, but it's not really smart. I knew you retire at 65. People don't realize the average person retires at 65, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Athletes retire if you have a good career at 35. So you always had to think, what am I going to do from 35 to 65? If you could think like that while you're doing your career, you'll think of other careers because you can't really retire before 65. So you're trying to, this is how I looked at it, was I'm going to make the most of it. Yeah, what could football bring me? It could bring me the freedom. That's what money brings me, the freedom to choose what I want to do next.
Yeah. In business terms, we call that a runway, right? You want to create the longest runway you can for your business or whatever it is that you're going to do. So you have enough freedom and you don't have the pressure of having to necessarily sacrifice something to make what's next.
That's what I want. And that's what, if you could do that, you'll be okay in life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This is probably a really good spot to wrap it up. I'd love to do a number 2 with you where we can kind of like, this is, your career as a footballer, and then sort of we've come to this part of the existential crisis of, okay, you're no longer a football player anymore. And I think that would make for a really interesting part 2. So is there anything that you would like to add in closing?
No, just thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. And yeah, again, if we could have part 2 or sometime, I enjoyed myself. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I'm so glad we can amplify your voice, and I hope we can continue to do that because it's a really important voice for Canada soccer and for the next generation. And I hope they're listening and they're willing to learn from somebody like you. So thank you for being willing to sit here and share so much of your story and be so candid. I really appreciate it.